If Ferrari's bold claim about its 2022 Formula 1 car development is anything to go by, the Scuderia is pulling out all the stops in its bid to be a title challenger again. There was a lot of scope for recovery in 2021 given how mediocre the 2020 Ferrari had been with its serious power shortfall and compromised aerodynamics. So third place in the Constructors' Championship with 5 podiums and 2 pole positions formed a respectable season in the second year of Ferrari's recovery. But much more is expected from F1's oldest giant. Whether that can be delivered in 2022 depends on the success of its major car and engine developments. Ferrari claims it has significantly updated its internal combustion engine and made major changes under the bodywork for its 2022 car. F1's most famous team has not won a Grand Prix since 2019, having spent the past 2 seasons recovering from a major setback, primarily on the power unit side, but also with its chassis. Question marks over Ferrari's engine performance in late 2019 led to FIA technical directives that clamped down on certain techniques and left Ferrari with a significant power deficit. Ferrari partially addressed that with its 2021 power unit and introduced a new hybrid system during the season that resulted in a notable improvement in performance and was the basis of the 2022 power unit's energy recovery system. Ferrari's also been developing a new V6, partly to optimise the design for the new 10% ethanol fuels F1's adopting in 2022 and recover the roughly 20 horsepower that's been lost because of that fuel change. But primarily it's part of an ambitious project to address its remaining engine deficit. This new V6 has been described by team boss Matteo Binotto as significantly different to the current one, as Ferrari saw a lot of opportunities in development and changed it quite a lot, especially in the design of the combustion engine itself. Ferrari's new engine design is understood to not follow the split turbo concept pioneered by Mercedes, where the compressor is mounted at the front of the engine and the turbine further back. Instead, its innovations include the intercooler solution and a combustion technology. Combining superfast ignition with ways of making the intake mixture more turbulent and therefore explosive, and getting the flame to quickly spread to the edges of the combustion changer are the keys to improving combustion and maximising the 500 bar fuel pressure allowed under the current regulations. This is where Ferrari's significant changes to its power unit will likely arise, and it means while the engine's architecture will remain conventional in terms of the turbo's layout, it should be more compact and more effective with its combustion. In addition, Binotto says Ferrari's pursued new ideas on its chassis. Just like every engine manufacturer has had to adjust to the new fuel, every team is also building brand new cars built to entirely different technical rules. That includes a significant departure from the aerodynamic platform of the previous generation cars, with some worried the FIA has made the rules too prescriptive. But Binotto says Ferrari's innovation lies below the surface aero components. He said, "The way we approached the exercise was really open-minded. When looking at the car concept, what was possible or not, whatever you could have done under the bodywork in terms of layout, suspension design, the architecture, the power unit, I think that the team made significant innovations. The overall design that we are now formalising is quite different to the 2021 project." We will see the new Ferrari for the first time on February 17th, with other teams revealing their 2022 challengers even earlier. This is F1's most eagerly awaited launch season in years, so make sure you're subscribed to the race to follow it. We'll have analysis of every new contender built to the new rules, so we promise it will be worth your while. We know that the 2022 cars are going to result in different concepts to their predecessors because of the rules overhaul. We also know that engine development is being frantically finished at every manufacturer because the power units will be frozen at the first race and performance updates will not be allowed for the entire remainder of this engine era. That's up to and including the 2025 season. So you might be wondering whether Ferrari talking about a radically different car and engine is really that special. The key is that Binotto is talking in relative terms. When he says something is significantly different, that's not just Ferrari's designing something to new rules. It means Ferrari's adopting new concepts, technologies and ideas. And it shows that while Ferrari was making progress in 2021 with its SF21, its focus has been on the 2022 car. Binotto calls the 2022 project a priority and a necessity for Ferrari. He even says he doesn't believe it would be possible for Ferrari to have a good or competitive car in 2022 with a normal development approach. Because it wasn't in the championship fight last year, unlike Mercedes and Red Bull, Ferrari didn't have to worry as much about balancing its development resources. And it's important to remember that last year was the first that F1 introduced its sliding scale of aerodynamic testing restrictions, which gave the worst performing teams more wind tunnel time and CFD items. Ferrari's poor 2020 meant it was able to spend more time in the wind tunnel and do more CFD work than Mercedes, Red Bull and McLaren over the whole of 2021. This amounts to 168 more wind tunnel runs than Mercedes and Red Bull and 1,050 more CFD items. Based on what Binotto has said, we can be sure this advantage will have been put to use almost exclusively on the 2022 project. So when we hear Ferrari talk about significant innovations for its 2022 car, we're thinking about that with all of that background in mind. And in the context of Ferrari seeking to end its exodus from the F1 title battle, it's bold to talk about its car development in a way that only raises expectations further. But if Ferrari's claims about its significantly reworked car and engine package prove correct, and they have the desired impact, the team could well be about to rejoin the championship fight. Although Ferrari seems happy to talk up its development efforts, it has stopped short of declaring that will result in a title bid. That's because even though Ferrari had a better 2021, it still finished 290 points behind title winner Mercedes in the championship and had an average deficit of more than 0.7%. That's roughly 6/10 around a hypothetical 90-second lap. So the other interesting aspect of Ferrari's 2022 development is how it will have attempted to eradicate the lingering weaknesses when so much of the car is changing. The SF21 was a very effective update from 2020, and by Ferrari's estimation, only around 0.35 of its 0.6 second qualifying average deficit to the front was down to the engine. Ferrari's 2020 car limitation was at both ends, with the unfashionable wide nose and a shortfall in rear downforce too. But the token system used in 2021 to manage development costs amid the coronavirus pandemic meant only one of these could be changed. Cleverly adopting a variant of Mercedes' idea to sweep back the rear suspension to create more airflow volume around the diffuser. This required a new gearbox casing, and that's where the token spend went. The new gearbox casing also allowed the differential to be moved higher, creating yet more airflow space in that highly aerodynamically rewarding area, even though it was at the expense of a higher centre of gravity. Ferrari also put more radiator area up high within the engine cover and less in the side pods, enabling a tighter airflow enhancing Coke bottle. It was a much more effective car than its predecessor aerodynamically and was particularly good in slow corners, achieving very effective early rotation without upsetting the rear end. This played a big part in the consecutive pole positions scored by Charles Leclerc in Monaco and Baku. A significant weakness of the car was excessive front tyre wear, and that was fully exposed for the first time in the French Grand Prix. Both drivers faded dramatically out of the points after qualifying respectively. Ferrari initiated a big internal investigation into the problem, and there was no other weekend last season where that trait seriously compromised the race performances. So Ferrari did make a good step in 2021, and there's every reason to expect another step in 2022. But Binotto has sought to temper expectations by emphasising that it needs to keep on growing and to further reduce the gap to the competitors. So he's laying out this year as another step in Ferrari's recovery rather than the final one. But Binotto still believes Ferrari should aim to win races again in 2022, even if it may be too early for a consistent challenge. He said, "The new regulations are a clear opportunity. The hope is to be competitive, and for me, to be competitive is to be in the position of winning races. Would that mean that we can fight for a championship? The gap is still big. But as Ferrari, it's part of our DNA. What is important is to be capable of fighting at least in some races for pole and for the win. I would be disappointed if we have not improved from this year." What are your expectations for Ferrari in 2022, and what would be the minimum acceptable result for F1's recovering giant? Have your say in the comments, leave us with a thumbs up as well if you enjoyed this video, and remember to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all of F1 22's car launches.